A very warm good morning to one and all present here. My name is Duria Siddiqui. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to another insightful session organized by the Department of English, IEHE. Our department has always been committed to academic excellence, and today's session is another step towards it. Allow me to introduce our esteemed guest speaker for today's session, Ms. Mojri Saxena ma'am. She is an alumni of IEHE and remains an integral part of our academic community. Having cleared UGC NET with JRF in 2020, she is currently pursuing her research at Barkatullah University. Her dedication and achievements continue to inspire many aspiring scholars. Today, ma'am will share her valuable insights on drama, its types and elements as the timeless art. We welcome you, ma'am.
That tells us that drama is very vivid in its storytelling, right? And that's all drama is all about. It is a form of storytelling. Now, as poets and philosophers will have you believe that the life that we are living right now, like you and me and Mugdha and Nuria and Pooja and Shomna and everybody and Arpit, everyone, we're also living through a drama. Our life is drama itself, and that's why Shakespeare wrote this very famous sonnet that all the very famous verse that all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. So you can develop your own understanding of drama by relating it to life, relating it to yourself as much as you can, even if it is a stylized play, even if it is an ancient play, you can develop a better understanding of the author, of the characters, of the storyline, of everything by trying to relate that to your own life. How? We'll see it further ahead. Defining drama, as we said, drama is basic storytelling. It's a form of storytelling, both as a standalone concept and within the realm of literature. It holds significant importance as artistic expression. Dramas stay with us much more than fiction, I would say, because drama provides you with the spectacle. It gives faces to the characters that you could only imagine in fiction. It's a genre that presents a narrative through the enactment of characters on a stage, often involves dialogue, although there are silent dramas. It involves action and conflicts that unfold in front of an audience. As Nuria was telling me, she was telling everyone that I'm doing my research from Barkatullah University. So part of my research is reader response criticism, which asserts that there is no meaning unless there's no meaning to a text unless the reader reads it. That stands true with drama as well. Drama is my genre. Drama is the subject on which I'm pursuing my research. That there is no point of a spectacle, there's no point of a dialogue or a conflict unless there is an audience to witness it, to make sense of it. That is why actors have rehearsal. They're never like, okay, this is a scene, we are going to discuss that just a bit and then we're going to the stage right away to perform. No, they spend hours and hours perfectioning their mannerism, perfectioning their dialogues, their dictation, their accentuation, their placing on the stage, their blocking. Why? Because they want to make sure that the meaning is conveyed in a very crisp manner to the audience member. So the audience is at the center of any play. In the domain of literature, drama often refers to written works intended for performance, encompassing plays and theatrical scripts that are designed to be enacted by actors. So when in your syllabus, you'll have a paper, MA students especially, you'll have a paper titled just drama. So those are the text that you have, those are scripts that are actually intended for enactment. Like you have Henrik Ibsen, Arthur Miller, right from Shakespeare, actually. It's very important to note that in literature, drama differs from other forms of storytelling, as we discussed, as it has its focus on dialogue and the interaction between characters to convey the narrative, themes and emotions. If two people on stage are not discussing, are not talking, or are not enacting, we wouldn't know what is going to happen, right? The structure of a dramatic work typically includes acts and scenes. As you must have seen in a couple of scripts, that there is Act 1, Scene 2, Act 3, Scene 4. All right, this is the bifurcation that drama or plays typically adhere to. These structure these structures guide the progression of the storyline and offer distinct moments of tension, climax, and resolution. People in advanced MA might have come across terms like even people in undergraduate course as well. You might have come across terms like peripecia, anagnorosis, and catharsis. All of these are elements of a tragedy by Aristotle, but also these phenomena are experienced when they're accompanied with elements like tension, climax, and resolution that are very important, very vital to theatre. Through dialogue and actions, characters reveal their motivations, their conflicts, and growth, making drama a dynamic medium for exploring the human experience. All right. So, as you see, and you might have also experienced this while watching an emotional movie or emotional scene, you might have shed a tear or two. Uh, like for me, I cried a lot when I watched Kal Ho Na Ho the first 50 times. That is because it really resonated with me, it really spoke to me. So Kal Ho Na Ho is a movie. The same thing might have happened with you while watching a play. There is a play by Girish Karnad called Tughlaq. It is about the ruler. Obviously, there is a scene when the ruler is in a very he is in a dilemma, and he breaks down on stage crying. That is also very. It's a very sentimental scene, and you can really see the villainous part of his personality breaking down into nothing. So that is also a very sentimental scene on which I might have shared it here. So that makes all of these experiences that make drama a very dynamic medium. And that is why I urge you to please go and watch as many plays as you can in your city, in your state, because it's really important that you experience life to the fullest. Now, great dramatic works or plays in literature often reflect the societal, cultural, and psychological aspects of the time in which they were written. Uh, you will come across questions like why did the playwright have this scene in your paper? You will be answering in your paper questions like why did Hamlet do that, or why any such questions. They often pertain to the background, to the thematical, to the societal and cultural meaning of the play. Playwrights utilize their creation to delve into complex themes, highlight moral dilemmas, challenge social norms, and provoke thought and emotional engagements among their audiences. Now, this is also like this is a point where the playwright might have to consider their creation in relation to their audience. Let me explain. Let me give an example of how. Has anybody heard or read the play The Dollhouse by Henrik Ibsen? Anybody? Shobna has might have read the play The Dollhouse by Henrik Ibsen. Anybody else? Okay, so in Dollhouse, Apurva has also read it. Okay, in Dollhouse, when Henrik Ibsen had originally written and performed it, the audience at that time, they were very disappointed and rather angry by its ending, because the titular character, the protagonist Nora, she ends up. I'm not going to spoil. Like, I am going to spoil the ending for you, because come on, it was performed in 19th century. The protagonist, she leaves her husband at the end of the play when she realizes that she has been mistreated as a and she has just been considered as a trophy wife all along. All right. Now, when Henrik Ibsen performed this play, when he put this play up in his time, sometime in the 1890s, people were so angry. Then, how can you have a woman leave her household, leave her husband, her kids, just because she wanted to be treated nicely? He had to face a lot of backlash to the point that he had to change the ending of the play at that time. And so, for close to 20 years, the ending that he had to stick to was such that Nora just has this intense argument with her husband, with her about her kids and her lifestyle and everything, and then they resolve it, and then she actually does not leave him, and they just live happily ever after. So that is an interesting study. Later on in the later part of the 20th century, they gathered in like people that came after Henrik Ibsen. They gathered enough courage to change it back to the original ending and then perform the play in its originality. But you see that there is always a dilemma or a fight at play with creation and society. Okay, so the power of drama lies not only in its ability to entertain, but also in its capacity to engage with issues that resonate deeply with the human condition. Now, we talk about the components of drama. As we spoke of in the beginning, the very important part of drama is its characters. Now, characters are very important in the way that they are the heart of any dramatic work. They drive the plot, they convey themes, and they engage the audience emotionally. They give face to our name. Characters can be a protagonist, they can be villains, they can be foils, or just supporting cast. Each character has distinct traits, they have their motivations and relationships that shape their interactions, and it influences the story's development. Like in Hamlet, Shakespeare Hamlet, the protagonist Hamlet, he's driven by his quest for revenge and internal conflicts, and he often interacts with characters like Ophelia, Polonius, and Claudius. And all of that contributes to unfolding the drama. Next, we have plot. Now, plot is basically a sequence of events that makes up the storyline. A plot is nothing but a sequence that situation A happened, then situation B happened, then situation C happened. Okay, it includes introduction, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. Now, falling action and resolution is often where you experience catharsis. This plot structure, it creates tension, it creates intrigue, it guides the audience, and it takes you through to the narrative journey. Next up, we have conflict. Conflict is the driving force. Without conflict, any drama, any play would just be boring, because you have the character, you have the plot. There has to be a point of tension, there has to be a conflict that drives the story, that drives the drama ahead. It can be internal, like within a character's mind, within one's own mind, or it can be external, within two characters, or a character and a circumstances, a situation and a person. Conflict propels the story forward, and it eliminates the character's growth and how the character develops. It makes the drama, it makes the scene engaging. It urges you to reflect on the story and sometimes upon yourself. And a drama without a conflict would just be very boring, and it might not exist. Next up, we have dialogue. Dialogue, it's the spoken word, the spoken communication between characters. Now, by dialogue only, you can recognize a character's personality, the relationship that they share with other characters, their intentions, their emotions. Like often you have things like soliloquy, which is a solo isolated monologue of a character. That also tells you a lot about the character or the situation or the story overall. Now, When you oftentimes, like in my experience, when you consider a play a good play, whenever you come across a good play, it is generally in the dialogue where the excellence, the brilliance lies. The playwright and the actors, when the playwright works on the dialogue writing and when the actors work on the dialogue delivery, the play comes out as a brilliant piece of creation. And whenever you come across a play that is not so good and when it falls flat and you just do not enjoy it, it is generally because either the actors have been lacking in their delivery or the dialogues were not written very well or very close to reality or very close to essence in their originality. Okay. Next up, we have the spectacle or the setting. I'm sorry. The setting, it tells you the time, what era, what place, what environment the play is taking place in. Okay, it influences the mood, the atmosphere, and the context of the story. Now, character and the plot may not tell you, even the dialogue may sometimes fail to convey the context of the play or the thematic background of the play, but the setting always, without fail, 100% of the time conveys the context and the thematical background of the play. Okay. Uh, for example, Tennessee Williams has an American playwright, Tennessee Williams, had this amazing famous play called A Streetcar Named Desire. It was set in New Orleans, and it has its distinct ambience, and there is like the two neighbors upstairs and downstairs. It has a cultural backdrop, and it contributes to the characters' experiences and their development. And that scene has been used because people are so familiar with A Streetcar Named Desire and the setting that it takes place in, that there have been countless scenes in sitcoms, in movies, in theater, in plays, where people just recreate that scene where there are two neighbors, one upstairs, downstairs, and one mad woman, blanche, and one man in a white shirt. And they don't even have to say the dialogue, and people would just know that this is a scene right out of A Streetcar Named Desire. So that is a very a powerful setting, I would say. A very important element of drama, component of drama, is theme. Now, themes are the underlying ideas, the key message conveyed through the drama. They might address universal truths, societal issues, complex, psychology and philosophical concepts. Themes, they enrich the narrative, and themes provoke thought. You might come across, for example, the play that I mentioned at the beginning of this session. The play that I had watched, in that play, Krishna was reflecting on his own actions, on his ideas, and he was thinking of Abhimanyu all while Mahabharat was taking place. The battle of Mahabharat was taking place. Now, the theme of that particular play was communication, and how lack of communication often leads to fights as big as Mahabharat. Okay, so it's just all the wars, all the battles, or the fights in the world can be avoided if people just sit down to have a meaningful, patient talk with each other. Apart from these, we also have elements like stage directions and symbolism in the play. Stage directions, they often provide guidance for actors, for lightmen, for technical people to follow to make a perfect spectacle for the play. They describe actions, gestures, emotions, and technical elements that enhance the performance and overall visualization of the play. Like, for example, you will see a scene of Waiting for Godot, a play by Samuel Beckett, in further ahead in the slides, and you will see the setup and the how, just by looking at the spectacle, looking at the scene, even without even when the name is not given, you would just know that this is the scene right out of Waiting for Godot. So the sparse stage directions in that play, they contribute to the existential atmosphere and emphasize the character's sense of aimlessness absurdism, absurdity. Okay, now we move on to types of drama. First of all, we have tragedy. Tragedy, as we know, because we all live a rather sad life, so we all know what a tragedy is. It's a genre that explores the downfall of a hero due to tragic flaws, external situations, or a combination, a mix of both. Tragedies often evoke emotions like pity and fear, typically are a catharsis, and they often end in catastrophe or death of the central character. For example, Macbeth follows the tragic journey of Macbeth's ambition, leading to the ultimate downfall and demise. This is a scene right out of Macbeth. This is an illustration of a scene of Macbeth, where you can see the three witches also. Then we have comedy, standing right in contrast to tragedy. Comedy, it has humor, it has wit, and it has lightheartedness. It often involves misunderstanding, mistaken identities, confusions, humorous situations, and they often aim to entertain and uplift the audience. This is a scene from Oscar Wilde's The Importance of Being Earnest, what you're seeing on your screen. It's a classic comedy that employs wit and satire to explore themes of social conventions and identity. We often find this theme at play in our movies, especially movies of Bollywood. We would see that scenes that stay with us and scenes that are gaining rather much popularity on Instagram these days. They are from comedy movies, especially by directors like Priyadarshan. Again, we have a mix of two, tragicomedy or dramedy. It's a mix of both, as the name suggests. It combines elements of tragedy and comedy. It often blends serious themes with humorous moments. These plays explore the complexities of life, and it has both light-hearted themes and dark aspects. Tom Stoppard's absurd play Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. It reimagines the story of Hamlet, Shakespeare's Hamlet, from the perspective of two minor characters who were just in the original play. They were just sailing their boat and taking Hamlet from one place to another. It reimagines the play from their perspective, and it balances existential reflections and comedic exchanges. First of all, the very idea that to have see the play from their POV is hilarious enough. But also, I recommend you to please read this play and read this drama, and then watch its performance whenever and wherever you can. I think there is one performance up on YouTube as well. Um, it is by National Theatre Academy in England, if I'm not wrong. Please go ahead and watch it. It's wonderful. Historical drama, as the name suggests, historical drama is about a person or a situation in very important in history. It is set in a specific historical period, and it often involves real historical figures and events. Historical dramas provide insight into the past while addressing universal themes. So you would see that the play that I was mentioning, Tughlaq by Girish Karnad, that is a historical drama. Frederick Schiller's Mary Stuart, it dramatizes the conflict between Mary, Queen of Scots, and Queen Elizabeth I, exploring how the power shifts between the two empresses and how they endure personal struggles. This is a poster, as you see on the screen. This is a poster from one of the performances of Mary Stuart in Europe. Musical drama, again, as the name suggests, that it is full of music, and the dialogues are often conveyed in verses. It combines theatrical performances with music. It includes songs and often dance routine as well. The musical dramas can cover a wide range of themes and emotions, and it often utilizes music to enhance storytelling. The scene that you see on your screen is from Miserables or Les Miserables by Claude Michel Schonberg and Ellen Boublil. It's an adaptation, a theatrical adaptation of Victor Hugo's novel. It is a musical drama and it portrays the struggles of various characters against the backdrop of 19th century France. There's been a movie, English movie made inspired by this production as well, and that movie is also musical in nature, like La La Land. So the movie is has the same name. Absurdist drama, as we discussed few slides back, the scene that you're seeing on stage, that is Waiting for Godot. Absurdist dramas challenge traditional narrative structure. Now they are unconventional, not just in their story but also in their techniques. These dramas explore the absurdity of human experience. They often feature illogical situations, disjointed dialogues, and existential themes. Samuel Beckett's Waiting for Godot is a quintessential absurdist play where two characters engage in nonsensical conversations while waiting for someone named Godot. Now, even Godot is I think, a very creative name for the title and for the theme, because Samuel Beckett wanted to convey that they're actually waiting for God, and they realize that God may or may not be coming. The certainty is just not there. So God, oh, Godot. Okay. Political drama, one of again a very important and a very high on performance type of drama. Political dramas center around political conflicts, ideologies, and power struggles. They can focus on individuals, groups, or entire societies dealing with political issues. Very good thing with political drama is that it does not matter where the play is taking place, in which continent, in which political setting. The entirety of human race is such that our experiences, rather socio-political experiences, relate with each other in a very common way, like something that somebody might have endured in an 18th century European socio-political situation. You yourself living in 21st century global or South Asian geopolitical situation, you might be experiencing the same thing or a similar situation. So that is the beauty of political drama. George Orwell's Animal Farm. Now, Animal Farm was a novel, mind you, but it has been adapted into plays quite a lot. George Orwell's Animal Farm uses allegory to portray the rise of totalitarianism and the corruption of political ideals through the actions of farm animals. In the scene, you see Shakespeare's Coriolanus, and this is an illustration of a scene from that play. Melodrama. You might have heard this word in taunts and comments and whatnot. Melodrama emphasizes heightened emotions and moral contrasts. It's very heavy on sentiments, and it often features clearly defined heroes, clearly defined villains, and their plots revolve around intense emotional situation. So when you say that somebody is being melodramatic, you just know that they're being very emotional, very expressive actually, very expressive of their emotions. Henrik Ibsen's Ghosts is a melodrama that tackles taboo subjects like venereal disease and societal expectations within a family. On the screen, you can see this is a scene from one of the productions of Ghosts by Henrik Ibsen. Now, so far, we've studied elements of drama and types of drama. Now, you yourself being a literature student, it's very important that you approach theater, that you approach drama from a critical point of view. You do not consider it just a mode of entertainment, but you also internalize it in a way that you absorb its essence, its meaning. So, how do we do that? First of all, we have to have a preliminary reading of the plays. You have to begin by reading the play thoroughly. Read it once to grasp the overall plot, storyline. Take note of the initial impressions, what you thought, of the characters, the emotions and questions that arise as you read. Then comes contextual research. Now, researching the playwright's background is very important, the historical period, the time in which they wrote, and the cultural influences at the time the drama was written. Understanding the context helps you enhance your own interpretation of the work. When you know that Samuel Beckett was writing and performing at a time where the American dream, or the not the American dream, but the human experience or the human condition had just stopped speaking to him, you would realize that more or less you're finding yourself in the same situation. And so it's very important that you develop a good understanding of the context of the text of the play. Character analysis. Analyzing the characters' personalities and motivations and relationships is also a very important part of studying a drama effectively. You can take notes of how they evolve throughout the drama, and you can pay attention to their roles in advancing the plot and conveying themes. Also, how they're speaking to their to the other characters on the stage. That will really help you. Sometimes there won't be a narrator or a sutradhar in the play telling you that, oh, this character is feeling a certain way. The character itself will reveal in their dialogue how they're feeling, what their intentions are, what their motives are, and what they plan to do in the play next. Plot structure. Noting the plot structure is also a very interesting thing you can do. Breaking down the drama's plot into acts and scenes is one exercise. You can identify the introduction part where the action is rising, the point of climax, the falling action, and the resolution. Mapping out the progression of conflicts and events will really help you understand the structure of the plot, and let's be honest, you'll be having more fun. Theme exploration. Now, when you sit down to watch a play or when you sit down to study a drama, you would come to, even before you click on the Wikipedia page of the drama, you would be able to make a guess that what the drama might be about. Identifying the central themes and the underlying messages of the drama is a very important part of studying a drama effectively. Consider how characters, how their dialogue, and how the events in the play contribute to the exploration of the themes. Now, if a play is strictly a tragedy, you would not find anybody speaking comical or humorous dialogues. There might be a jester or a comic relief character, but they won't have a lot of stage time. Dialogue examination. That is also a very important part, as what we were just talking about, that analyze the dialogue between the characters, identify key speeches, monologues, and dialogues that reveal character traits, emotions, and thematic elements, because dialogue and themes are often intertwined with each other in a play. Look for literary devices such as metaphors, similes, and symbolism. Stage directions and setting. Now, this is something that you will not find in 100% of the scripts. Sometimes there are stage directions in the published script of a play. But sometimes there are there are dramas that just do not have any stage directions or any idea of setting. So you will just, from the dialogue or from the context, you would know, you would have to guess what the setting is, or how the actors should be behaving in an ideal production. But generally, studying the stage directions and setting descriptions help. Visualize how the playwright intended the scenes to be staged and how the environment, the situation contributes to the moods and the themes of the play. Conflict identification. As we discussed, a drama story without a conflict just seldom exists. It will be very boring. So identifying the primary conflicts within the drama is again very important. Also, it comes very easy to you. Even if you do not consider yourself a very proficient reader, you would be able to identify the points of conflict just like this. Distinguish between internal conflicts the characters might be enduring within themselves and the external conflicts between characters or external forces or a situation and a person. Symbolism and imagery is very important. Identify symbolic elements and recurring imagery throughout the drama. Consider how these symbols enhance the meaning and depth of the story. Now, a very interesting story, like an anecdote about symbolism in theater, is that there has been a very famous playwright and theater practitioner called Ratan Thiam. Ratan Thiam was once asked by an interviewer that why do you prefer theater or drama over cinema? So he said that in cinema, when an actor says that look at the moon, the camera will just pan to the moon, to the actual moon in the sky, and you would look at the moon. When an actor in a play, in a theater, when the actor says look at the moon, there is no moon on the stage. The actor will just point at the moon, and you, as an audience member, will go back to your own idea of moon in your head, and you would imagine a image or a picture of moon being there. So theater helps me indulge into my own imagination. That's what Ratan Thiam said, and that's why I feel like theater is far more active in its conveying of meaning in its essence than cinema. Now, I'm not saying that cinema and filmmaking are not as creative. They have their own beauty, of course. But Ratan Thiam's account of, this use of imagination, I found it very fascinating. Now, comparative analysis is also very important when we talk about studying drama effectively. Compare the drama with other works by the same playwright or within the same genre. If we talk about the theater of the absurd, there have been many writers. If we talk about kitchen sink realism or the American drama, we have many characters. All right. Identifying similarities and differences in themes, characters, and techniques will help you develop a better understanding, get you a better idea of the time that these playwrights were writing and creating in. Cultural and societal analysis. Again, consider how the drama reflects the cultural and societal values of its time. Explore how it addresses relevant issues and challenges norms. Now, see, drama is something that has always been it's been an evidence of its time. You would find poems you would find poetry that is often, it might be a bit divorced from its time. Even fiction can be a bit separated from its time. But drama has always been about its time, the society that it was created in, and the culture that it is a product of. So in drama, you would always want to evaluate the cultural and societal values that it talks of. You can explore how the issues that are portrayed in that drama, how they're still relevant or how they've ceased to exist completely. Critical interpretation is again a very important part. All of this has been critical interpretation so far, but then again, approaching drama or theater as just a mode of entertainment can be I do not forbid you to do that. You can do that, but it can be a bit empty, and you might not be utilizing, your full human experience. So you can read critical analysis, reviews, and scholarly articles about the drama. What people have thought of this particular play so far. You can explore that. Engaging with different perspectives can enrich your understanding and help you form your own interpretation. like how people were with Henrik Ibsen's The Dollhouse, right? So critically approaching, critically interpreting any piece of drama can be a very fulfilling experience. Reading everybody's opinion on that, scholarly opinions on that, and then forming your own opinion can be a very rewarding task. So this has been drama components and types, and how we can study drama effectively. And that is the end of our session.
Uh, I have a question.
Please go ahead, Shobna.
Huh. So, for example, I have started like reading research papers on things that interest me. You can hear me, right? I hope
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can hear
I
me.
can. It's just the construction is
So,
going.
okay. So, drama has like I've always loved reading dramas, and generally speaking, theory I really like queer theory and Marxism and what do you call it, post colonialism. So how do if I have to like if I want to read a drama or just read about drama and explore these themes in dramas, where do you suggest like I start? Because with respect to like critical theory के stands, उसमें ही like for example there's this book called Beginning Theory. तो उसमें ही they suggest कि okay these are the preliminary say articles that you can read, but when it comes to like reading dramaturgy or reading about research related to drama, where do you think one can begin if one is like very basically a beginner at it? Yeah, should like one search like very specifically कि okay these are my interests तो उसी से related I look up, or
See, I would, and this is my personal opinion, Shobna, but I would advise you against looking up particular theories for like just because these are, I know that these are your interest and it's amazing. I share your interest as well. In fact, like I don't know if you can see my t-shirt, but I'm
okay, it's very good.
yeah, but I guess approaching just one or two theories will limit your understanding, and it will drive you to one particular ideologies, and you do not want that. We have enough of that in the world. There is not one particular source. Peter Barry's book is nice, yes, as you suggested, but also it's very limited in its scope. I do have some resources saved in my library. I have some of them bookmarked. I'll share that with you all. Actually, in the group, you can go through that. Sticking to one author or one ideology or one approach can be a bit harmful for your scholarly journey, because at the end of your career you might look back and see that you could have explored this particular piece of work in 10 different ways. So let's not do that. I will share the resources that I have at hand with you all, and the places in which you can look for these things. Also, I suggest going to if you have the resources, going to central libraries and looking up people, critical critiques, looking up important people who have done some important work in this genre, and dropping them a cold mail and asking them questions that hello, and I read this book and I found you through this article, and I really loved your work, and I would like to know your opinion on this and how I can approach this better. More often than not, these authors, they really love receiving these emails and responding to them. So,
okay. I have one more question. I'm sorry, I'm
go ahead.
a bit long. So you said ki don't limit yourself, and I understand that it's important to read everything, but then how do you like research scholars, they have their niche, right? Like this particular thing is their expertise. So how would one do that if they don't like I wouldn't say limit, but focus more on one
I'm
theory?
saying that you should not focus on one thing, of course, because if you're doing it for research purpose, your your topic has to be very specific. Because you have these interests like these theories, so these are nice, but also like you would know, आपको already पता होगा that there are sub theories and sub categories of these theories as well, these approaches as well, right? So there is no end of specifying. There's no end of specification here. Again, reading on a general studying on a general plane, and then finding what resonates with you the most, and then deciding upon your niche is far more productive than deciding even before you begin to study that this is going to be my forte. Because sometimes I see so many of my colleagues, my peers, who are also PhD students, that earlier they thought that maybe eco-criticism resonated with them. And when they finally sat down to study the theory and the people who did work in it, they realized that it's just full of chaos.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yeah,
Right.
being
Thank you so much.
yeah, of course, even starting
Yeah.
your journey takes a lot of work and a lot of research.
Right. Thank you so
Okay.
much, Marcy.